there's a reason when I started this workshop that I didn't just throw up a bunch of sample schedules to you. Because again, that would be like going and buying a bunch of beautiful bins and buckets and binders, and it's not really what fits our situation. Now, this isn't the glamorous part of scheduling, but it's the hardworking part. It's the part that makes the rest of our schedule and homeschool journey simple. And it really conquers overwhelm. Not all the way. There's just something about the homeschool lifestyle. Is it because it's really hard? That sometimes it's just really hard and we just feel overwhelmed. But it's better that I give you a formula and a guideline to look at when you're planning each year. This is why what you plan right now may not be your circumstances in 6 months, a year, 2 years, or 10 years from now, like some new homeschoolers that I've helped. But by giving you the formula for you to take pen and paper, if you will, do your math, come back to the table, find out what your current circumstances are, then create the schedule. Because that's the beauty of homeschooling. We want homeschooling to bend to our schedule. And yes, I'm not going to say you won't have to make some sacrifices. You will. But before you can determine which ones they are, you have to look at them and see, okay, how am I going to prioritize here? Because on the flip side of that, I know a lot of homeschoolers that start homeschooling and they don't want to get rid of anything. Nothing. And in order to homeschool, you have to prioritize it. You have to make time for it. It's a bartering system. What am I going to give up now so that I can have more time to homeschool? We can't do it all, and we don't want to do it all. We don't want to start off our homeschool from overwhelm. But what helps me when I was going through each year is to remember this is only a short time. There'll be this age and this stage. And I was determined to give that priority in my day. That's the mindset you have to have. Let me give you this example. I was talking in the previous workshop how persons that are organized want to do things their particular way. I'm one of those, I admit it. I have a particular time of the day that I do better. That is where I want to do my hard things like house clean and things like that. But guess what? It didn't happen that way. I started off when I started homeschooling with my first schedule with everyone doing a little bit of house cleaning in the morning. You know what? It sounded good and it made me feel better, but my children were not ready to school. It put us behind. What I learned from that is that I have to give school first in my day. It didn't mean I couldn't have a little 15-minute pickup time, but I wasn't talking about 15 minutes for the type of cleaning I wanted to do. So I had to compromise. See, that was my time that I preferred that made me feel better. But did it really have to be done in the morning because it was best for me? Not really. Not cleaning. So I switched it, and then cleaning happened at the end of the day, at the end of the school day. It was a time for the kids to unwind. They could have some physical activity and pick the house up so that it was ready for the next morning. That's how I compromised. So I just want to give you an example of how we have to make room for homeschool. We can't keep doing things our way and then say this isn't working because we're not willing to adjust or change some things. It's a balancing act. All through these workshops, you're going to hear me say, it's a balancing act. Stay balanced. Don't go extreme either way. Don't say, well, you know, I'm a fly by the seat of my pants type of person. That's not really going to get us anywhere either. Does it mean you have to change and be rigid? No, absolutely not. Your personality and the way you're relaxed, you want to bring that to homeschool. But like a person who is rigid, you will have to make some adjustments about perhaps reining yourself in some. See, everyone has adjustments when they come to homeschool. And like I said, again, it's all about balance. So I just want to recap a few things. Let's remember our definition of organization, or really any term that we use from here on, whether it's lesson planning, schedule, routine. Don't just assume when homeschoolers are talking about these things that you have a full grasp on what they mean, because these terms are not synonymous. They're not. To a person that has never had a schedule can be quite frightening. Oh, they feel like it's going to be rigid and confining and they can't really teach out of the box. When actually it's been quite the opposite for me. I have more time. It's more relaxed. I don't jump up at the last minute and make a meal because I planned it for 30 days ahead of time. I don't like stress. I try to minimize it. I like relaxed days in my homeschool. I enjoy peaceful times. Now, sometimes those are things I can control. Now, of course, our days were not always like that. No, no, no. We had plenty of chaotic days, and we had plenty of days where I just had to call homeschool to a halt and say, hey, we got to stop here and get caught up. The house was way too out of hand. But for the most part, that was my goal, and that is what I aimed for. And what you aim for, you do get. Are you going to hit it perfectly? Absolutely not. But it's better than not aiming for anything at all. And we wear so many hats that we really want to have some kind of flow to our day. So remember, what's your definition of organization? Are you measuring by persons that don't lead our lifestyle? Are you measuring by what you did before you had kids? And you know it's very different now that you have kids. That's the same point I'm making here, the very exact same point. You can't measure with what you did before you started homeschooling to what you're doing now. And guilt is hard to homeschool under a heavy burden of guilt. I do not want you to start that way. So as we go through these definitions, I will explain to you how I've adopted them and why. Because like I said, it's crazy talk. When I hear people say, we don't need organization or we don't have to lesson plan. But what is their idea of lesson planning? My idea is that lesson planning tweaks laid out lesson plans. I can create a lesson plan like I've showed you. I can also just journal the lesson plans. But if I don't keep a pulse on what my kids are doing, how can I move ahead? How can I make our journey flexible to the needs of my children if I don't keep a big picture of what's going on? I need a timeline. Oh, they did this lesson here and they did all 30 problems with no problem. But here it was the same concept and they've struggled with 10. Did we lose something in there? Do we need to backtrack? See, when you hear homeschoolers say, I've never lesson planned in my life, maybe they're talking about they didn't create them. And I can't imagine that either. But tweaking's the same thing as lesson planning. Why? Because you're planning what you're doing each day. If you're not planning it, you have journaled what you have done each day. That's another little secret tip. We need to see what we're doing. We have to track it. When we need to find or put a pulse on what the problem is, we don't know the problem because we don't have anything in front of us to show us what they've been doing. See? So there's a difference. We don't have to wear these heavy burdens of these definitions that are so rigid and confining. That's not what organization is in homeschooling. Okay, so let me recap a few of these things. It's a system that fits you. And yes, you realize you're going to have to make some changes, but you get to decide that. You're the teacher now, you're the boss. Where are the changes you're going to make? Not some unrealistic schedule you're going to stick everybody in and someone says, here's the schedule, this is what we follow for our kids. Okay, it may not be good for you. And you're trying to fit your kids into that schedule? Measure. We're going to measure first. So you're going to create it, and then you're going to find a way to communicate it so it doesn't stay up here. You're going to make a simple plan, and then you're going to communicate it. And simple, when I mean simple, I don't mean we're going to implement everything at one time. There's no need in that. We're going to go slow as habits are formed and a routine to our household, and be patient with yourself and your children. I have my notes here because you know I have a lot to say always. So here's what I want you to know first, after we talk about creating it and communicating it. First, let me tell you the story. I was asked to speak at a convention, homeschool convention. It was Atlanta. And the topic was organization, of course, which I love. And I have so many tips to share. And I thought, what would be the best tip I could share with them? There's so many things that I could help them with: schedules, curriculum, fitting other things in that we don't have control over. But what is one tip that I could really help a person in 15 minutes, 10 minutes that they could walk away with and help them? Solid. This is it. This is it. Find out what type of person you are. There's been a lot of talk in the organizational world, both homeschool and just regular organizational world, about the difference between a schedule and a routine. And I'm here to tell you I do both and I love both. But that's not going to help a person that's struggling with organization. So first, what you have to find out is which type of person are you? And even if you are that type of person, do your circumstances align with that? Let me explain. And also, let me tell you one more thing. There's not one that's better than the other. There's just not. They both have their advantages and they have considerations. They both have to watch out for things, whether you use a schedule or whether you use a routine. And like I said again, I happen to do both. I like both. I don't try to put myself in a compartment, but I've been organizing for a long time. I don't want you to do that. I want you to think and pick one of these. Where does your personality, your family's rhythm, and their needs align? So a schedule type of family would be one who likes alarm clocks. They pretty well get up at the same time every morning. They have a pretty predictable schedule. Dad has a pretty predictable work schedule, or the significant other. And dad usually comes home same time, meals are the same time. Don't do very many spur of the moment plans. Everything's pretty well planned. The household runs good that way. And for the most part, the family thrives that way by a predictable supper time and time to rise out of bed. We have another family who perhaps, and like I said, I've had both of these with my circumstances because my husband has had this type of schedule. This is the type of person I am. This is the one that I prefer. This is the one that I prefer. But sometimes it didn't align because this is what I had to follow. Because my husband worked many different schedules. He's had different shifts. So then we have a family who's perhaps dad works different shifts. They may stay up later. They get up later in the morning, and it's more of a routine. She probably has a list for the day that she wants to get accomplished for the day. And it's not so much when she does it as much as we get it done. And I really don't care when it gets done as long as it's before the end of the day. But this one allows for a few more people dropping by, a few more wiggly, a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. Those are fine. We love wild people like that too. I've had some wild times in my life. I've loved that too. So those are the two types of families, the two types of basic schedules. And you have to determine which one do I really follow? Which one do I like, but that's not really my circumstances. And here's another one. I like the schedule. So what I did to myself in the beginning was I brought a lot of stress on myself because guess what? I wasn't the scheduler. My newborn and my toddler and my morning sickness, those were my schedulers. There was nothing I could do to control any of that. What time they would wake up, what time they would eat, when they got sick, when they needed attention. This is how I thrived, but it wasn't what I could do. So I set the schedule up, and we didn't start 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. It just didn't happen. Sometimes I would start at 7 in the morning. Other times I start at 10 in the morning. It's very stressful to me until I realized, you know what? That's not my household's rhythm. I can't do that. Okay, so you want to look at these two. So don't set up a schedule that's not your family's rhythm. And at the same time, if you struggle with organization and you like routines, then you have to rein it in some. Okay, this is a list. It has to be done between these hours. That's a better tip instead of, okay, well, you just have all day long to do it. Let's have zones. These things in this zone, that gives everybody some wiggle room and for things to come up and to happen. Okay, so think about that for a minute. Which type of person are you? And which schedule would you like to be, but maybe you're not right now? So let's talk about that first. Okay, the next thing I want you to know is that we have to measure. Now, the printables that came for this workshop, I have a grid where I just listed some things that come up in the week. You can add those other things that you have to do for the week. Sometimes these are responsibilities that are out of our control. A lot of them are. And of course, there are things we have to get done, like housework, cleaning. Perhaps you take care of aging parents. Perhaps you're a single mom. Perhaps you're a working mom. Some things we don't have control over. So we need to put in our grid where those things plug in first, because those are things we do not have control over. See, that's our measuring, because we have to make room for school, and we're going to find out where are those slots. How can homeschool fit in my life? And if it's not going to fit and you see that it's filled up, then you need to say, okay, what am I going to let go right now? What am I going to let go so that I have room to school? If you see the whole day and the whole week's filled up with other things, then how are we going to make time for it? And I want to share a story. When I was teaching a workshop, I forget which location I was in. I had several here in Texas, but I need to share this example with you. Because we were talking about schedules, and I was helping one mom with her schedule. And she was really having a hard time. She was really stressing because she had committed to this volunteer job. And I could tell that she almost was in tears before she could even open her mouth to talk to me, to tell me what it was. And thank goodness I didn't say anything. I just kind of sat and listened and watched. And I didn't right away say, well, just let that go. What are you talking about? Your kids are way more important than volunteering. But I didn't say that. I just listened for a little bit. And what had happened was, she was a single mom, and she had left an abusive relationship. And it was very near and dear to her heart that she was working in a women's shelter. This was part of her healing. This was part of her recovery. And to other people, if she would just said she volunteered somewhere, they would have just said, well, why are you doing that for? So the point is, we can't judge. We can't say just because it's volunteer work, you have to give it up. Each person has to decide, is this really something that I really enjoy? It's near and dear and passionate to my heart, but you know what? I can come back to it in 3 or 4 years because my kids have to be priority. Or is this something really that's part of a healing process and goes to who I really am and mentally makes me a better mom? See, that's important. That's key. So only you can determine those priorities. That's why I have all of that down there. Now, I had moms that were the ones, every time one of their friends had babies, they were the ones that having the baby shower. They were the fun moms putting on the baby showers. Maybe they were, but now they're homeschooling. Could you bring something? Do you have to be the one heading it up? See, it's hard. It's hard to let some of that go. It's a sacrifice. I'm not going to tell you it's not. It is. But you need to be the one to determine, what are you going to give up and what are you not going to give up? Where are you going to make room for your children each day? Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about, because I have 3 forms that I've written down here to help you remember. First, we talked about tracking your week. I left the form with you. If you have not done that, if you have not downloaded that printable, please do that. And I don't even care if you write it on your phone, if you put it in a calendar, but have it ready so that when I help you, if you're struggling, I can help you on the group, because I need you to have it there in front of you so we'll know what's our numbers? What are we working with here so we can plug in homeschool? So when I mean tracking your week, this is a judgment-free. Homeschool should be a judgment-free. It's not like that, but it should be, because we all have different circumstances. So on tracking your week, you want to write down when you get up, when you prefer to eat, when you prefer to school. I've shared with you when I prefer to do those things. I am a early morning person. I can rumble with you at 4 o'clock in the morning. Always have been. Yes, I know I'm probably not the majority. I've learned a lot and taken a lot of my learning style and personality style teaching tests through the years, but it's just the way I'm ready to rumble. That doesn't make me better than a mom who's a night owl and gets a lot accomplished when the kids are asleep. That's just as good. It's the time her body says, you know what, I can be productive right now. Now, we both have to rein in things. I will have to give up some of that time to do my school in the morning. She may have to give up some of her time in the evening to get her school prepped. Okay, so that's how it sacrifices for both types of persons. So track your week. You say, oh, well, I'm a morning person, but do you get up at 10? Oh, well, I'm a night person. I prefer to do my stuff at night, but you go to bed at 9 o'clock. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. But find your body's rhythm. We don't want to try to stress you this first year. We need reality check to find out when. I say this is supper time, but when do we eat supper time? I tell my kids this is supper time, but when do we really eat it? When do we take time to walk? Do I like to watch TV? Do I like to read a book? Do I waste too much time on the internet? What am I doing with my time and when? Track it. Because the reason is that the schedule needs to be simple and fit you. Remember I told you everyone would go buy all these beautiful, expensive tracking systems and organization systems, and they try to fit all their kids in it. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. The secret to the smart organizer is that they make the system fit them. That's what I'm trying to get you to do. So that's why we want to track. And if you haven't, like I said, track this week. Track to see. The second page you should have in front of you that I've shared is the subjects to teach, because you want to have an idea. You have filled it out, how many children you have. I created it editable so that you could type it in. If you don't want to type it in, print it, write it out, have it in front of you. You have the tracking the week, you have what you have to teach your kids, how many, and the subjects. Okay, I'm not talking 17 subjects, the bare minimum. What do you have to do? So those two, and then the last one is the worksheet from this workshop series, which is prioritize, writing everything down. So now you have the grid in front of you where everything's happening at. Okay, I have to take care of my parents this week. I pay bills this week. I prefer to buy some groceries online. No, I don't want to buy my groceries online. I want to go in person. So all that put all of that in. What days do you normally do that? Okay, that's where we start. All right, and then I'm going to show you in the next workshop how to get the schedules and how to bring all of that together. Now, I want to share a few more tips here that you need to know about, and that is one thing I want to talk about is also, let's see, I want to get real here with you, and I want to speak from my heart. And that is, we have to make homeschool first. I know I've said this before, but I really want to slow down here a little bit and explain why. I didn't say first in the morning, but I did say first in the day. That's another seasoned veteran tip. It's another huge mistake newbies make. And that is they take care of everything, their work, their house, their menu planning. Remember I was telling you I did that? Because those things were important. That's what I was doing before I started homeschooling. And then I realized by the time that my kids got ready to sit down to learn, they were done. What I didn't realize is that first in the day, my kids are the freshest. That's the way most all households are. Now, I didn't say right away you do it. some kids, you know, and some moms, we're kind of grumpy in the morning and we want a little bit longer time to wake up. Morning, later, that's not even what I'm talking about. You want to give yourself that time. But the next thing that should happen after that, even if it's just a few minutes of pickup time, is right to school. That has been my best tip, hands down, that has made each year successful. It's how I get a lot in. I give school first, not everything else. And of course, on the schedule predicts, because if my kids know and it's predictable and I've communicated to them that Tuesday morning I have to work because we had a business and I worked in it, they would know Tuesday morning they're on the piano, they're doing independent reading, they're doing some art, they're outside swimming, they're shooting baskets, they're doing their chores. See, that was our schedule. That was our day to get caught up on those things. But what makes it hard for a lot of homeschoolers is they do everything else they want to do. And then what happens, and we don't really mean to do it, I didn't really mean to do it, unintentionally, we give our kids, our friends, maybe even our husband starts thinking homeschooling's not important because we've done everything else. And then we do homeschool because we think we have to. So that's how I had to bump it up and say, okay, I don't really prefer to do my cleaning in the evening because that's not the time I shine. But guess what? I did. And I compromised. We did some in the morning too, but not very long because I had to give my kids their time first. And then as they grew and they got older, it was nice because they could just run the whole household and do everything without even me prompting them to do anything and still sit down and do their school. But we're teaching kids habits, routines, and this takes time. Predictability, communicating the schedule visually is the key. That's the key. So think about that. If your first in your day is the afternoon, you give them first. If it's mid-morning, you give them first. If it's early morning, you give homeschooling first. Have your time you need to wake up, do breakfast. If you don't do breakfast, people, then get on school when they're the freshest. Tackle school first. Okay, one more point I'm going to share before I move on to the next workshop. And that is, you know, I told you I love all the ooey gooey fun parts about homeschooling. I do. And I will tell you, your love is huge in making things happen. But also, you know, I told you that I have to see facts. I have to see stats. I have to see numbers because I'm also real. And I want you to learn to do that when you get ready to plan. You can't plan by just buying curriculum and opening it up and doing it one day. It's not going to work that way. You need to pull up. You need to look at your numbers and decide where are we going and know where you're going. That's the only way you can plan. So I'm going to give you some numbers and I want you to think about them. Okay? This is how I plan. So different curriculum providers will give you 160 lesson planning days, up to 170, up to 180. I use 180. That was my rule of thumb. I did not need to track days, attendance. I didn't have to do anything here in Texas, but I have, and I did, because I wanted to know again where we were going, what we had done, what had we accomplished. When I don't track, I'm more inclined to say, well, we're not doing enough or we're behind. When I track and I see what we're doing and I remember my numbers, I don't have to say we're behind. What makes you think that? And when moms tell me that, I'm like, and what's your measuring tool? Right? Math's all about measuring. It's about the numbers. Let's talk numbers. Okay, here's the number we're going to use. And it's a number I encourage you to use because it's pretty well accepted even in public school. They do about 180 days. And even most states that have record keeping, they use 180. I can't remember. The last time I checked, there may have been some that used 170, but I think for the most part, they're at 180. So I encourage you to 180 days. That's 9 months of school. Now, let me talk about how to break that down because I did some math here, okay? So we have 180 lessons, and I'm just going to use 12 years of school. 12 years of school. That's 2,160 days. 2,160 days for 12 years of school. Now, I divided 2160 by 365. Okay, no, we don't do school, sometimes formal lessons every day, but we do some kind of teaching every day. It is 7 days. Do you know the number I get? When you divide 2160 by 365 days, I get 5.91 years. Okay, that's how many years of school they actually do in public school. Did you get that? Do you think in 365 days in 12 years, you can get more than that? That's 5.91 years of school. So let's get real. Let's talk numbers. I like numbers because when I say something, I want to know why I'm saying it. I want to know how I'm measuring it. And when someone says, well, I'm behind, I want to, and behind what? Right? Okay. Think about that. That feels good, doesn't it? You've got this. You can do this. Slow down. Make it better. Savor it. Enjoy it. Now, let me give you one more set of numbers before I stop here, because we're going to talk about schedules next. We have 180 days. And the reason I want to give you these numbers is because I want to tie this point back to what I taught you earlier, and that is the flexibility in high school, even in middle school, even elementary, is to change your subjects, because you think, well, if 3 subjects are good, 17 are. And then you think, how do they get all these subjects in? It's because they know, they work with the numbers. They know where they're going. They know how to change things. They know how to be flexible. They know how to get 2 subjects within 1 year, because they remember usually 180 days is 2 semesters, 18 weeks each. 18 is 36, right? It's 36 weeks. We have 180 days. It's 36 weeks of 9 months. No, it's not the weekend. I'm talking 5 days. They don't school on the weekend. That's how we get 36 weeks. Or 4 quarters of 9 weeks each. Now don't leave me. Don't have your head spin. You've got this. You can do this. But know these numbers. Be in the know. Take control of it. Why did I tell you 4 quarters of 9 weeks each? Because you can change the subjects every 9 weeks for something else that interests your children or something else that you want to get in. If you have to follow 180 lessons. And that's what I did. I followed 180 lessons because I could see, of course, I didn't just school 9 months. Since I schooled from the beginning, I did school year round. We're going to talk about that some more too. Why would you want to do that? I'm going to share some points about that. But do you see how much you can get in when you school year round, not just 9 months? We had longer periods of time that we stopped, but we never really stopped schooling for very long at a time when I homeschooled my kids all the way through to high school. We just kept on going. But when you know your numbers, you can base your years and you can plan when you know your numbers. 180 days, that's what you're planning for. That's what's a typical school year. So think, that's 9 months. You have 12 months. You have a lot of give in there to add another subject, go slow, spread out lessons if you want to take all year to do it. Or if you need to stay with 180 days, remember 2 semesters, 18 weeks each. You can plan a subject like that, or you can plan a subject by quarters, 4 quarters, 9 weeks each. 9 times 4, 36. I just want to be sure making all the, dots. I know you are. But the reason why is, like I said, give me some facts, give me some stats, give me some numbers, so I'll know what am I looking at when I'm planning for a school year. All right. Okay. Let me go back over this real quick. Remember, adopt the right view of organization, not what the outside world does, not all those blogs that don't have kids underfoot, but from homeschoolers who've been there, done that. An organization simply is putting everything in a place. That's all it is. It's just putting everything into place and having a simple system. It's not making our family bend to something we get. Remember, I explained how when I collaborated, we would take longer with this girl that I was going to collaborate with to learn her system than we were to just communicate back and forth. She had complicated the simple. A simple system's best. Simple is best. You have to make room for it, but you can't make room for homeschooling until you determine where is the time wasters and what you're willing to give up. You're the only one that can determine whether an activity you're doing now can wait. And I encourage you to do that. Wait 3 or 4 years until your kids are older, because you will have more time. Or is it really part of my mental healing and process and you have to keep it? Another thing I wouldn't encourage you to do, when I saw my notes over here, I saw that I had skipped this part. That's why I have my notes over here. Is this isn't the time to try to cram in as many co-op classes and extracurricular activities as you can. Your schedule has already been dictated by somebody else during public school or private school. You don't want to start off your year that way. I don't encourage you to join as many classes as you possibly can, not your first year. I encourage it to be simple, to enjoy, to get to know your kids, to get to know curriculum. Sure, if you have to, you have maybe a high school team that needs it for credit, maybe you're a working mom and you need it, okay, that's fine. Those classes have to be put in as set in concrete, like your other responsibilities for the week. Okay, so set those in and then determine what kind of person you are, schedule or routine. And then after you determine the person that you are, then find out, is that really what your family is right now? Because remember, I told you I'm a scheduler, but I had too many people doing my schedule for me. Toddlers, newborn, it wasn't going to happen. I had to follow a routine. And I almost went insane trying to make them all do that when there was no way that I could do that. It was unrealistic. It wasn't going to work. Okay, so I knew the time would come, and it did come, and it will. So don't be discouraged. So decide which type of person you are, fill out the grid, track your week. I need all this information, and what are you supposed to be teaching your children? Okay, what are the subjects? Now we have all of our numbers, and then don't remember our numbers: 180 days, 36 weeks, 4 quarters of 9 weeks each, 2 semesters of 18 weeks each. All right?